All right, what's good? What's good? What's good? We are officially live. What's going on, everybody? We got Lisa in the building. We got Melvin. You guys should be able to hear me, should be able to see me. Yep. All right, let's make sure that we get this message out to all the chats here. All right, y'all. We are officially live, and this will be the first stream of November. Pretty crazy, pretty crazy. Man, where has the year gone? Right? Where has the year gone? We got Lucas as well here. What's up? We should have everybody tapping in. All right, guys. So we just got a pretty strong push right away at market open for NAS. So we're seeing right at 6 p.m. we've got a nice pump that we got to kind of kick off the trading week. So that's something to keep an eye on. A big theme from last week that we never really quite got any closure on was the new week open gap that we had formed, from the last initial push on Sunday. And yeah, man, we never quite got there. We started off the week, rallied, continued rallying, and then FOMC, kind of created that last, high point that kind of started us pushing us into the direction, but we never quite got there to that new week open gap, from last Sunday open. So that's still something that is a inefficiency that we have not rebalanced. Which just goes to show you, in a way, I'm kind of glad for all like my students that are, part of Akashex and that kind of follow me more closely, that we don't necessarily need to fill new week open gaps right away. It may not even be the same week. So will it at some point? Yeah, I mean, that's the part that for me is very undeniable for the most part. But yeah, you could literally go the whole week without having to fill those new week open gaps. So never create certainties, all right, in the market. Sometimes people create these like certainties in their head, like these paradigms of like, oh, this has to do this, or the market will for sure do this. Like, you don't know that, right? If you don't control price, if you cannot make it do something yourself, never assume that it will do that. If you say it's a high chance, high probability, that's totally fine. But just never assume that you know what will happen, because you really don't know what's gonna happen. Trust me. So yeah, wanted to start with that because again we got a nice pump to start the week right away, but that was kind of the same thing that happened last time, right? So it really could continue to just rally, very possible. But for me, there's really no bear side objective, like sell side objective, as far as like what's below on price, that is more important than this new week open gap from last week. All right, so always keep in mind, for me at least, right, the way I look at markets is we're always going to gravitate towards areas of liquidity and or imbalances, so that way price can either hunt down highs and lows, or it can fill any type of inefficiencies that were left behind. All right, so those are the two main things that price for me will always gravitate towards and reject from. And if you have that lens, then you kind of can expect a little bit, where price is wanting to head and why, and where we could expect reactions from. All right, so as far as like sell side targets, obviously you're having the open of this new week, which is basically where that candle started, from 6 p.m. You also have all these relative lows that are, nearby, right? So like, again, new week, open price, you got this low, you got this low, and then you have the new week open gap from last week. So any sell side targets, you're gonna be wanting to hit here, 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 and then ultimately here. Okay, so these are always this is the way I always look at objectives or like targets, like where price wants to go. So those are sell side objectives or sell side targets. As far as buy side targets or buy side objectives, it's gonna be the same thing. Are there any fair value gaps that were left behind that are apparent? As of right now, no, other than the one that we formed right when the market was closing, but we literally filled that already with the first candle of the new week. All right, so you can see personally how I have this indicator that basically marks up the fair value gaps for me. Not that I need help really identifying them, but it just kind of makes my life easier to just auto populates it onto my chart. So you can see this imbalance has already basically been filled. And over the past, you can see how price gravitates towards those fair value gaps here and uses them as areas for reactions. So you saw that nice sell-off, price retraced back into those fair value gaps and then dumped off. That was kind of the trade to take on Friday. You can see even earlier, I believe it was maybe post FOMC. So this was post FOMC. We had FOMC on Wednesday. You can see how price manipulates the lows here, then we manipulate the highs with this wick, came back lower. Same thing here, you had a manipulation of this high, and then you had the big sell-off. So within that sell-off in Asia, you can see another fair value gap that was kind of created in there. And that's basically like the highest point of the week where price really kind of sat in there. Okay, multiple times, kind of sat in here and dipped off. Next day, pushed back into that gap, dipped off. So again, stressing the importance big time of fair value gaps and areas of liquidity, aka previous highs and lows. You can see how the two work together really well. For example, in this situation where FOMC created this high right here, during Asia, after price sold off a little bit, we come, take the high, and then we dip off. During that, you create a fair value gap that sits in there, which creates opportunities to continue the sell-off. So again, just always trying to observe where these fair value gaps are, how price reacts to them, and also where are the previous highs and lows that price might want to react from. Okay, so again, main sell side objective would be this low that kind of clears out all of this stuff holding price up, and then we can eventually push into this. That's really what I want as a general idea heading into the week. Is I want to get to this new week open gap from last week. So we have different things that we wait for that are very specific for my A+ setups, as far as letting the Asian range develop pretty much from now until, well, not now. Asian range will start in the next like 50 minutes, almost an hour. So from that time to 1 in the morning, we'll form these gray boxes that you see here. And that's going to be a big telling sign for me of, where we're going to really want to go. But if the market is going to want to go higher, then obviously buy side objectives will be this high, and then the high that was put here, which is an all-time high in the market. So these are the objectives. If price is going to hold here, we're going to want to target here and then here. Okay, so we just need, again, to let price develop a little bit more and see if this draw on the liquidity is really what price is looking for, or if, again, really the main thing is going to be these lows, and then we'll have price basically done for that. Okay, one of these two are going to be the main thing, the all-time high or the new week open gap. Right now we're just sitting in the middle of it, picking aside, right? So how would we know? Well, that's where we need to stack a bunch of confirmations and things that, for me, come during New York session. Okay. All right. Let me see what's up in the chat here. Benjamin, what EMA line do you use? I don't really use a EMA right now. I threw on this VWAP, this volume weighted average price, onto this chart. I never really used this. I just started using it like over the weekend, like just looking at something that I wanted to test with it. So I don't ever really, have EMAs on the chart ever. This line that you see is volume weighted average price. It's called VWAP. Again, I don't really use that stuff too much, but for what I'm really trying to dial in, I've been trying to back test this, so I just kind of had it up. So you don't really need it. But I'm trying to create something that can give us like a really strong setup that might incorporate VWAP into it, but we'll see. To be determined on that. All right, so yeah, that's kind of an early analysis of what we're looking for NASDAQ. As far as other markets that really interest me, one thing that I did kind of drop the ball on a little bit. I mean, it wasn't like a catastrophic mistake or anything of that sort, but we had earnings on Apple on Thursday, the 30th, and I totally forgot about it because I'm usually keeping an eye mostly on Nvidia. So like Nvidia earnings are the 19th of November, in about 17 days. Apple just kind of flew over my head, and the reason why it's relevant really is because at 4 p.m. on Thursday we could see how we had pretty much a sell-off day for the most part on Thursday, and then at 4 p.m. on the dot you can basically see a big injection of volume that came in right here. So this is 4 p.m. on the dot. We saw price kind of spike and then just completely take off. So this entire run here was actually pretty big. Like that run from 4 to 5 p.m. ran for about 300 points, 3,000 pips in a matter of an hour. So basically what it took the market all day from like 5 in the morning to get down to here was basically met with an entire retracement in like a fraction of the time. And that was because of the Apple earnings. You can kind of see here. This is the earnings right here. So from 271 a share to about like 277. $7 jump in about a minute. So that was big. So definitely having to keep an eye on that and put some reminders for that, because I mean, it could have created a trade scenario. Luckily, it didn't negatively affect the trade, but I mean, it could have. So definitely got to be more on my toes with that. Dividends do come out November 10th for Apple, but earnings really for me are like the main ones that we want to look for Apple and for Nvidia, just because these are like, the heavy hitters when it comes to NASDAQ. If you're not keeping an eye on those two, then you could be missing out on a trade and or kind of getting stumped out of a position late in the day if you held all day because you're not paying attention to that. So cool. And then yeah, again, if you look at the higher time frames, 4 hour, daily, you can kind of see these big inefficiencies. Like really the price right here, this daily flat bottom right here, flat bottom candle, on the daily time frame for NAS is huge. Like this is for sure something that I'm very interested in trying to get to. The previous daily high and low, so we had previous daily high was right here. You can see we're coming off of back-to-back bearish days. So we had that first bearish day Thursday following FOMC, and then Friday closed as a bearish day as well. So far we've opened and kind of pushed up. I would expect us to kind of come into basically the open of Friday. So Friday daily candle open all the way up until Friday high, and then respecting somewhere within this wick. Okay, so pushing up into this wick, rejecting from it, and ultimately coming lower down to here. That's kind of like the higher time frame idea, and then we just need the smaller time frames to kind of be in line with that. So if you look at that on a smaller time frame, you know, it looks like this. So ultimately respecting this entire zone and then coming lower would be, for me, like what I want to see. You know, sometimes we like tunnel vision on the smaller time frames and we don't really incorporate the higher time frames, but you know, for me that's really important. I'm gonna mark up this area here. So again, this is really like the open of Friday's day, and then the close and the high of Friday. So open and the high. So anywhere up in here would be kind of the idea to then see a sell-off. Retracement wise, from this high point right here all the way down to the low. So looking at this high to this low, basically like the retracement zone between 62 to 78% falls in line beautifully with that area. So I like it. I really do like it. That's the idea for now. All right. So yeah, if you guys have some questions in the chat, you guys can let me know. You know, on these market outlooks, I try to give you guys an idea of what I want to see from the market to start the week, but you know, more importantly is just kind of setting the habit of being prepared ahead of time with a bias, an analysis, an idea of what we're looking for or trying to do, and not trying to play catch up, you know, the same morning tomorrow trying to find a trade. You want to be prepared. Okay, you want to be prepared. So that's what we do this for. But also, if you guys again have some questions, you know, it's a really good time to ask them as well. I know sometimes our live sessions on Akashex, we can spend a good amount of time like finding live positions and stuff where we're not able to explain certain things or slow things down. It just depends, but you know, that's why Sunday market outlooks are really cool. And not really looking to take a trade on these ever, just kind of developing a narrative for the week as far as like higher time frame ideas and zones and things of that nature. Couple of very exciting announcements that we did have, you know, kind of coming from some big changes in the private mentorship as far as when I refer to Akashex is, you know, for the past several years, we always had Akashex as a brand within a much bigger company called My Daily Choice. And, you know, after hitting very strong benchmarks as far as revenue generated, client base, and just kind of overall consistency of success for the brand, it was basically time to, you know, have a standalone company. So, Akashex basically not being a part of My Daily Choice, but more so like an actual individual entity, which is super, super cool. It just kind of shows the evolution of the brand really to start from something that was an idea that maybe works to now having its own wings to kind of like spread and do its own thing. So that's super exciting. We're seeing a lot of those changes taking place over the next 2 days, starting November 4th. So all the people that are in Akashics, which is probably a lot of you guys, um, that's going to be huge. Obviously, if you've been in the program this whole time, then you guys are going to be what's called grandfathered in to the pricing and all those different things that kind of come with it. There's going to be a lot more calls, announcements, resources, things that kind of continue to explain the transition and just making sure everybody understands like how it works. But yeah, man, that's the most exciting thing. Will anything change in your education? Well, I don't know if you're referring to like because of the Akashics change. Definitely not. I mean, Akashics is basically the same. The only difference is we're not gonna be part of My Daily Choice, so that way you don't have to go through My Daily Choice to like look at your back office and change your information as far as like card payments and all those little things. Like Akashics is just gonna be its own complete standalone company. So everything is just through the Akashics website. Membership, maintenance, looking at your organization if you are an affiliate, just everything all in one compact, easy to manage place. So it's just kind of streamlining everything. I would have loved to be a fly on the wall at Josh's in Michigan. I actually went to the Michigan headquarters, the big warehouse and all that stuff. It's really cool. Obviously, I like the Vegas one a lot. The Vegas one was super cool, and I will definitely still be buying a lot of stuff from My Daily Choice. I have become addicted to many of their products. So, and look, I mean, Josh still owns Akashics, right? So those ties are obviously there forever. A live stream in Spanish. Well, I do live streams in Spanish through Akashics. As far as a live stream on like YouTube, look, at the end of the day, if people like make a demand for something, I'll always want to do it. Like I've done a lot of private trainings for different leaders and teams and things of that nature in Spanish whenever it's called for. Like I know Corab, love him to death, super amazing leader. Got a lot of love for him and his team. We set up private calls, trainings, webinars all the time. It's just a matter of communicating it and having it make sense. So I definitely love to do stuff in Spanish. But as far as the live sessions in Spanish, I do stream live Mondays at 11 a.m. Eastern in Spanish. And then when you look at my replays, you guys will see that I have some of these saved as Sesión Español. And then you guys can always go in there and just kind of, watch those sessions that are in Spanish. So definitely like to have content for the Spanish community as much as possible. But yeah, something like YouTube, I'm never close to the idea. I'll definitely do it. We just gotta have enough people that want to have it done, News this week. Yeah, like fundamentals in general over the past several weeks have kind of been, I don't want to say unreliable. It's just with the government shutdown, it's kind of been like weird. Like you can still see things that are tentative, So it just depends what it is. I mean, the big ones we're always gonna pay attention to heavy. Like if we have FOMC, if we have NFP. So like NFP is this Friday. Look, for me too though, like the way I've been trading is I'm not really entering positions much before these news events drop. Most of these news events are dropping like before market open at 9:30. Some of them drop right at 10 a.m. That's really when I'm trying to prioritize taking trades, is like at 10 a.m. or after. Sometimes we might do it before, but I've just been, really looking to double down on finding opportunities post 10 a.m. just because of things like 9:30 a.m. manipulation as far as like the open, the what's it called? Um, like opening range. You know, first 15 minutes to half an hour after 9:30. So, like, I'll give you guys an idea of like, you know, for me, like what I'm really looking to kind of incorporate as like my A plus setup. That incorporates what obviously I've been teaching on the platform overall, which is implementing Asia, and then also utilizing the 4-hour candles from 10 to 2 p.m. So to give you an idea, like 10 a.m. opens here. Well, I'll go back here real quick. 10 a.m. 10, 10. So okay. So 10 a.m. open is right here. Okay. So we see price kind of climbing. And we had actually called out on Friday buys at the 10 a.m. open to take us back into the range. And it was crazy because price kind of like ran up a bit into profit to my first targets, and then price ended up slamming right to stop, and then it came right back to the open and then took off. So some people took like early profits, some people like got stopped out with that last sweep, and then crossing back up. If you didn't jump in a second time, obviously you got kind of screwed on that one. But this smaller time frame idea was the buys here. Now this isn't what I want to show in its entirety, but for the most part, like using 10 a.m. Open price as a tool is very important. But this was like one idea that I had sent out Friday. But really, like what I want to try to focus on is not just going for the initial maybe reversal there, but just kind of letting the reversal wash out and then using everything else as confirmation. So usually like we'll be selling, let's say, below Asia low for breakouts. And if we can tie that in with the 10 a.m. open price, that makes it very strong. And then that's why I was incorporating this VWAP as a potential, like, just like a nail in the coffin, like third confirmation that can be very strong. So basically, if we manipulate above Asia high, we start breaking below Asia low, we can look to short that. If we stay below Asia low, break below 10 a.m. open, and stay below the VWAP. These are things that I'll talk about on the sessions more in depth. But yeah, ideally what a setup would look like is just waiting for the right time, when price really starts to cross back below. Because, I talk about in the sessions, if you look at a 4-hour candle and that 4-hour window, let's say from 10 to 2 p.m. is going to be a bearish candle, then the ideal position is always going to be where the candle opens or somewhere above that to take you lower. Just common sense, right? Like if you position yourself in a bearish candle towards the open or the high, then you're going to catch the whole move that kind of takes you to the close or the low of that 4-hour candle. So if we implement that with Asia as like multiple layers of confirmation, that's going to be huge. So it'll look something like this. Again, we kind of caught the initial reversal pushing up, but at the end of the day, like I knew that the sells were like the main play to take. I just got a little bit impatient, went for the opposite side, which still made profit. It just didn't make nearly as much. And it's not something that I would want to duplicate as much as this. So price taps right there at 10 a.m. And then we see it start to break below here. So what's it called? Right here. So again, multiple layers of things going on right here. Is you have price breaking back below Asia low, price respecting the VWAP, and then price crossing back below the 10 a.m. open after it had initially pushed up, right? So we saw price 10 a.m. open basically push back above and then close back in. And so stacking these three things together is kind of really like what I want to start creating as like an A+ setup scenario. Yeah, basically something like this: 50-point stop, respecting Asia high, respecting the VWAP, and crossing back below 10 a.m. open. We do all those three together, you could have trades that kind of result in something crazy like this. So these are the type of setups that I really want to try to duplicate as much as possible. So we'll see. I'll be looking to incorporate this as much as I can. I think this approach will help filter out a lot of fake outs and stuff that can happen with Liberty. If this could be like the example of an A+ setup. Doesn't mean you have to wait for 10 a.m. or to do this. There's people that make money on the reversals up here. Like the reversal model that I teach in a Koshex up from up here. I know some people took sells from here. This is around like 9:20, so 10 minutes before 9:30 a.m. market open. So definitely, obviously, an entry from up here can always be better than an entry from down here, right? So for the people that did take reversal model sells here pre 9:30, that was definitely a banger trade as well. So there's many models that you could take. It's about having ideas of what to look for before the bell, maybe during London session. And then for me personally, like if you want to trade after the manipulation of 9:30, if you want to trade after news, most news events are going to be post 10 a.m. anyways, or pre 10 a.m. anyways. Having something where we combine, 10 a.m. candle with Asia low, and then even stacking something like a volume weighted price all in one can create a very strong model. These are just little things that I've already been talking about in the sessions for the most part. It's just kind of like always refining, always understanding more closely what our ideal trades would want to look like, and then trying to really just stick to those, because if we can catch consistent setups that have rules and they create really good risk to reward ratios, that's really all you want as a trader. So yeah, more to come on that stuff obviously on the session. All right, let me see what's up here. Isn't it 11 a.m. now? No, because here's what you guys gotta understand. The markets also adjust to daylight savings. Now, if you're like overseas, then I don't know. I think we're all still aligned now. I think there was a time where like overseas jumped an hour, and now we just jumped an hour. So, but at the end of the day, the market open at 9:30 a.m. doesn't change just because of daylight savings. You know what I'm saying? Like 9:30 a.m. It's like saying you work at a, like when I worked at the bank, right? When I worked at a bank, like we have business hours from, let's say, like 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., right? Daylight savings doesn't change our business hours now from 9 to 6. We're still open from 8 to 5. What changes is when the sun comes out. So at the end of the day, the stock market is still going to open at 9:30. The 10 a.m. candle is still going to be at 10 a.m. Doesn't matter. The only difference is that we have sunlight at different peaks and at different highs and lows of the day. That's all it really is. If the person whose link I used to join Akashics has left the company, is there no way to transfer to your group? I'm at a loss because this means I don't really have a mentor to help and guide me. Yeah, look, for the most part, some people get into those situations and it's not like a necessity for you to have to switch enrollers or anything like that. But if you want, you can message me. We'll figure out something that makes sense. I'm sure, Benjamin, if you have my Telegram or my Instagram or whatever, you can shoot me a message and we can figure out something for you. What's up, Peter? Would you say VWAP is better than having a 200 EMA? I mean, the thing is, I don't really use a 200 EMA at all, so I can't really say what's better or not. It all depends on your strategy. Again, for me, like the VWAP thing is not even something I maybe would even consider using long term. But I think it could be a useful tool for intraday trading especially trying to use it as just a tertiary or like a third confirmation for what I'm looking for on like a super A plus setup. So end of the day, what's always gonna matter more to me is understanding session based liquidity. So understanding where's Asia high, Asia low. You know, you could incorporate London highs and lows as well, but for me, Asia is really like the main compass that I really look for. And then incorporating my main window, which is from 10 to 2, or at least that's the bulk of my trading window during the York session, is going to be that candle from 10 to 2. I'll let the position run past 2 p.m., of course, but the entries are usually going to be taken from market open all the way until the first couple hours of the day, which could be as early as 9:30 and maybe somewhere between, again, like 1 2 p.m. So the bulk of that is that 4-hour candle from 10 to 2. So if I understand how to master that window of 10 to 2, then I've basically controlled my day, you know? And so, you know, keeping in mind the higher time frames, like the 4-hour, if you're an intraday trader, is very crucial for you to ride the right type of wave. Because again, I knew that the candle prior to 10 a.m., that 6 a.m. candle, closed bearish like this. So I knew to focus more on selling. Now 10 a.m. opened and I went for the buys, and it still ran for over a 2-to-1. So it wasn't a terrible trade to go for the buy, but it was a little bit of impatience from my side. I just knew that we had some rebalancing to do up here, so I knew that if we took buys here, we'd want to come up a bit, and it did. It's just the way it played out was not too clean, and it didn't give a crazy risk to reward compared to just letting that idea kind of wash out and then realigning the higher time frame stuff. So again, having this initial dip from 6 to 10 a.m., allowing this little retracement to take place, and then executing at that 10 a.m. open for the continuation was really like the A plus trade. I took more of like a B trade, or like a C plus trade, I would say, something like that, like a BC category, where it's like a 2-to-1 trade counter to the, you know, prior window. So still okay, but could have been better. And that's why I want to really try to like get very, very, very clinical with the execution of, you know, me trading during that 10 to 2 window. So, you know, even with a lot of years of experience, I'm always trying to improve. You know, not necessarily changing anything, just improving my edge as far as refining. You know, like, hey, we might take 20 trades that incorporate these 4 models, or I can take 10 or 12 trades incorporating a very specific one that, you know, has a much higher win rate or something like that. And then I'd rather always take less trades with a higher win rate that has good risk to rewards than jumping into like more trades that have more losses in them and are less, I guess you could say, quality when you really revise them. So yeah, just always understand that, you know, it doesn't matter how much time passes by or how long you do something. If you look at people in sports or in anything that's like performance based, the minute you stop growing is when you start to die. So always looking to improve, change, do something to adapt. I just think that's a mindset that you should want to have. So again, I'm not changing strategies. I'm not changing what I trade. It's still NASDAQ. It's still Liberty. But again, just looking for ways to refine and improve as much as possible. All right, cool. So yeah, guys, again, unless we have any questions, we'll probably call it a stream right here. Kind of have an idea of what we're looking for. So again, general idea. We're looking for price to kind of push up into where Friday's opening price to the high was. So open price on Friday was around this price right here, all the way up until the high from Friday, somewhere in this vicinity, a little bit over the 26,000 price range, at least on this broker that we're looking at, to look for a reaction that can kind of take us down and at least take us to take this liquidity here. At this point, we've already tried to get to that new week open gap many times from last week, and we have not really gotten there. So at least to take the sell side liquidity would be kind of like my main idea here. Okay. So keep this in mind, and we'll see how this goes. The range here from the earliest potential entry to the high is about 1,200 pips. So that's 120 points. Yeah. So this is about 1,200 pips. So somewhere in here. One little sneaky thing that might play a role. I know that this candle right here was where the market opened at 9:30 on Friday. And that was actually the target that I was looking for when we were looking at the buys. Here on Friday, we were looking to take it up to there and we never quite got there. It kind of stalled out and returned. So it actually might even push up until this inefficiency right here from 9:30 on Friday. So if I want to be very, very, very specific, I would say maybe we can continue to push to there. Let me see. That retracement level would be. Oh yeah, it's very close to that 78% retracement. So that could definitely be like a very sniper crazy entry right here. But again, anywhere from here to here would be the idea. Obviously, if price kind of runs through all this, then we have to really kind of revisit the drawing board here. But initial impressions, this is what I would want to see. Alrighty. Cool. All right, guys. Well, let's make it a great week. Again, tomorrow we have the first session of the week in Spanish at 11 a.m. Eastern. So looking forward to that. And then we got Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in English to keep things going. And we really want to have a good start to the month and set the tone. So I'm excited for that. But yeah, guys, I hope that you have an amazing rest of your Sunday night. Looking forward to seeing you guys on the sessions. Again, we have a new and improved revamped Akashex that is going to be continuing to roll out now starting the next 2 days. So be on the lookout for any calls, announcements, guidance, anything like that. Benjamin, I know you had some inquiries about your placement and stuff, so you can message me about that. And yeah, guys, if for those who may not be in Akashex, you can see the links in the description of this video. I have a Google form where you guys can fill out, connect with me. It'll ask you some questions to kind of filter out like how I can help you as far as trading goes. Whether it's working one-on-one together, private mentorship, helping you get started with Akashex or whatnot. So yeah, appreciate you guys. I will see you on the side.